Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of us exposing, analyzing Scientology. At the moment, we're reading through Dianetics, the Evolution of Science. And the reason why, guys, is because I get the allure of Scientology. I get why people get caught up in it. I get why people attracted to it as a way to improve their life. And so one thing I've noticed is a lot of people talk against it or about the people that were negatively affected, but not enough people talk about what they're actually teaching from an outside perspective. And when I say an outside perspective, I mean somebody who has decided what truths in life are to be followed and what perceived truths are actually lies. And so in order to help everybody, I thought, let's continue through this, especially because one of you guys on the winning team, shout out to Tim and Sarah, sent this to me. So we've gone through, if you haven't seen already, we've gone through the introductory pages, and we are now at the contents page, which I first of all want to just point out how fascinating this is. Just to remind you where we ended yesterday. So yesterday, well, I say yesterday, was it yesterday? Last video, it was actually yesterday. Where were we yesterday? Excuse me. So it was explaining the importance that when you go through the book, you should never go through something you don't understand. So if you don't understand it, then you need to go back and find the definition of which. And this is what got interesting to me, because in this book, right, in this here book, so it's a total of, let's see, the book total is, I'm trying to see the total number of pages. Okay, so it's about just over 200 pages long, right? All of the chapters 1 through 7 are 89 pages. There are more pages of explanations of what's been said than there are of the things being said. I know a manipulation tactic when I see one. And so this is just what's interesting to me. You actually are spending more time explaining what you just said than able to just explain what you're saying. And this is something, guys, I truly believe, and I'm not saying you have to agree with me. Anybody who's been subscribed to this channel and anybody who's new to the channel, this is something you need to know about the Winning Team channel. It's not about us all agreeing on everything, but it's about us all looking at all information that is brought to the table with an objective perspective of factual honesty, right? So you can disagree with me, and if you do, please let me know and let's talk about it, because I could be wrong. But to me, the fact that you have to spend just as much time explaining what you said as saying what you said is a great recipe for a manipulation tactic. I'm not saying it is the recipe, because sometimes when we read things, and especially, and I'll tell you this, guys, I've studied a degree in science. You guys know this. I talk about that a lot, because one of the things I picked up when I was in my lectures and I was studying is a lot of so-called societally accepted intelligent people just use confusing complex vocabulary to sound more intelligent than they actually are. And also not even just that, but to make you, the reader or the listener, feel more stupid. That's why I talk about science to you guys, because I'm not thinking that when I'm talking to you guys, oh, I'm trying to explain science to idiots. I'm thinking I'm explaining stuff that these people are going to understand, because people aren't stupid. People aren't stupid. A lot of people who are so-called intelligent treat people like they're stupid, but people aren't stupid. I'm talking to you guys as humans, because we're all humans. I'm the same human just as you are. So, with this, yeah, I get having to explain what you said, but also as anybody who's so-called intelligent, with a very popular intelligent phrase is that if you truly understand something, you should be able to explain it to a 3-year-old, right? Because if you actually understand something, you should be able to super duper simplify it. And what they do is they utilize the fact that people don't understand what they're saying. So then when you hear somebody start using scientific knowledge, you think, wow, that person must be so smart because they've said A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But they're using that so that you don't actually think about or study what they're saying. And most of the time they could have said it in much plainer English. And I experienced that with one of my own university lecturers. He was very much like that. He was very much like he liked to be seen as intelligent. And so if you are dealing with the situation in which you had to consider bringing together the two entities of one and another one being brought together and trying to find the summation of the two. You as one must first of all assess the nature of the parties involved and ask yourself that when intrinsically and eloquently and objectively those two entities are brought together, one might suggest that it is the equivalent of just doubling one of them. But what does doubling mean? It means doing the same thing more than once. So we have to flirt with insanity in order to bring these two things together. And once we do, we realize that 1 + 1 = 2. And that was the point of everything that just happened. And this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is exactly what my lecturer was like. I love the guy. Loved him. He was a great lecturer, very knowledgeable, waffled like hell with just unnecessary scientific vocabulary. And this is what I'm trying to teach you guys. Like, when I'm saying this stuff, I'm trying to help you to understand with something that is easily understandable to everybody, how scientists take the same types of things that are genuinely easy explainable to everybody and make it seem impossible for everybody to understand. And that's what I believe that Ronnie Hubbs did. So we're 6 minutes in. Let's get into I'll quickly read the contents of the chapters and the appendix. So it says Chapter 1, the optimum computing machine. Chapter 2, building a science of the mind. Chapter 3, demons of the mind. Chapter 4, the basic personality. Chapter 5, how the mind works. Chapter 6, the villain of the piece. Now, let's just clarify. This is not peace as in P-E-A-C-E. This is peace as in P-I-E-C-E. Maybe L. Ron Hubbard has a similar viewpoint to me, that life is just a game, so we better play to win. Chapter 7, technique and application. And then there's an epilogue, and the epilogue starts at page 107. Then the appendix, further study, page 115. I find appendix to be such an interesting choice of words for this section of books in general. Also because when I wrote my own scientific research and I was studying, I also had an appendix in my research. And I just find it funny because when we talk about an appendix in the body, you can literally have your appendix removed and go on about life. Like, it's not one of those things where it needs to be replaced and somebody needs to give up something for you to replace it and you need to be on the donor list. You can live without an appendix. And I feel like the fact that you can live without an appendix says so much even about this, in terms of, it's like the appendix is something where it's like, it's not the main text. A lot of people are not going to necessarily look into the appendix of a text because they don't necessarily feel they have to, because of the way that it's being presented, because it's being presented as an appendix, like your own physical human body appendix that can just be removed. In my own personal family, there's multiple people who have their appendix removed and it's part of it. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, we just move on. You have your appendix removed, you go forward, and we're all just like, well, for some reason we had this in the past, but we don't know why we had it. It's not that important. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that a lot of the things that L. Ron Hubbard was literally saying is what we're like putting all of our trust in, is in that part. Because listen, what's in the appendix? It says further study, guide to the material. So the guide to the materials, the addresses, the places where they are. And then hear this. This is the bit that I was just like, and when I say I was like, I only ever look at the bit that I'm about to look at, by the way, guys, before I start, literally just before I start recording. It says, the editor's glossary of words, terms, and phrases, right? Words, terms, and phrases. And this is 64 pages long. If I'm checking correctly, it is far longer than any other of the sections of this book. And so basically, this explanation of the words, terms, and phrases that are the only reason that you'd be confused, give up, or whatever, is taking up the largest chunk of this book. So what does that say to me? What it says to me is, well, we have to do everything to control what you think and why you think it. If you read something in chapter 4 and it said this, well, you need to check the glossary, which makes up the biggest section of this book, to make sure that this is what this is supposed to mean, to make sure this is what we're supposed to do, what we're trying to do, in order for us to be able to say, well, yeah, that is what we said. And we said that because of this. And if you didn't understand this, it's probably don't understand it because you're probably stupid, because we think you're stupid anyway, because we think you're going to fall for all of this because we've made it so freaking believable. And that is what Scientology is, guys, ladies and gentlemen. The appendix. So what is called the appendix, the same name as an organ that exists in your body that you can literally have removed. It doesn't affect anything. You don't need it to be replaced. They even say, oh, this is just a part of our, according to people who believe in things like evolution, is a thing of our ancestors. The people that came before us needed it for some kind of caveman adaptation at the time. That thing, that same word we're going to use for this whole section. But in this section, we're going to tell you, the further study guide to materials addresses and the editor's glossary of words, terms, and phrases, which if we flick back just page before, what does it say? What does it say? I'll read the last paragraph of the part that says important note. Therefore, in studying this book, be very, very certain you never go past a word you do not fully understand. If the material becomes confusing or you can't seem to grasp it, there will be a word just earlier that you have not understood. Don't go any further, but back to before you got into trouble and find the misunderstood word and get it defined. And what I'm going to do to wrap up this video, because we're going to start chapter 1 tomorrow, because why not, or the next day, whenever that is. Let's do that, right? And here's the thing. This is what I'm going to say to you guys. The fact that anytime you're studying something and there is a nature of infinite opportunity, as in there's something that's infinite that you have to know, that is, to me, the resemblance of a lie. In the same way of a scientific theory, because scientific theories tell you that at this moment, at this time, according to our understanding as the so-called best scientists of the world as a community, this is the theory we believe in. This theory can be completely disregarded, destroyed, and disproved. As such, we saw this with, Georges Lemaitre. I did a whole video about that man. That video is the #1 video that if you go onto my YouTube channel, it will come up on the screen, the first video, God versus Science. And I talk about how in that video, how he was like the father of the Big Bang Theory. Why? Because prior to him, many scientists, including Albert Einstein, believed that the universe was static. That was the current running theory. The universe is static. And Georges Lemaitre proved that the universe is not even static. But not only is it not static, it's not contracting, but expanding. So it's an ongoing theory. And when there's ongoing theories, guys, ongoing theories are not truth ever, because it means at any point it can change. Case in point being, I'll give you one more example of my favorite actual scientist, George Mendel. Oh, I keep calling him George Mendel on here. Greg Mendel. Gregor Mendel was a scientist who decided to have all these peas like petit pois, like garden pea type of thing, that he was, I don't know what the gardening term for it is, but he was basically, cultivating them together to make plants and stuff. So basically, he was a mathematician, and so the science community only discovered what he did after the fact, which is not surprising, because biologists are not good when it comes to chemistry and maths. I hate to tell you, the biologists, you guys, I love you with respect. You're not great at chemistry and maths, and so it doesn't surprise me that Gregor Mendel, technically a biologist, his work was not understood by that community. Yeah, I'm throwing shade. It's okay. I respect biology, guys, and I do actually like biology for a lot of things. So he was the one who realized that when it comes to genetics, it's not just a black and white of a child becomes exactly half their mum and half their dad in every single way, because that's what people believed, and that's what people actually believed as soon as like 60 years ago, guys. This isn't something crazy. I'm not making up conspiracies. This was 5,000 years ago with the cavemen. This was people that I know who went to school, were taught this at school. Right? Turns out he proves that it's alleles. It's the dominant and recessive alleles, and dependent on what your father has and your mother has, and whether it's dominant or recessive and how they come together can change it. I.e., if having brown eyes is a dominant one, that means that even if the other person doesn't have brown eyes, the child is going to have brown eyes, right? But if, let's say, blue eyes is recessive, if both of you have if the child comes together with both the recessive alleles, because it's both recessive, they're going to have blue eyes. This is something that Gregor Mendel, a mathematician, figured out because of P's, right? And obliterated the so-called running theory at the time that, oh, all kids are just 50-50 their parents in every way: height, skin tone, personality, shape, body shape, everything. My point is, guys, and I'm saying this for a reason, to get us ready for, I'm trying to prepare you guys all for what the scientific community is really like. Because I don't think, like, when you're an outsider, I get it. It just looks like these people know what they're doing. They live off of facts. Can I tell you that the longer I went into my degree, the more I realized that so much of the stuff we were being taught was just based on assumptions and theories and estimates, not concrete evidence like what people think. People are like, oh, I trust science because, no. And that's why when you look at people like L. Ron Hubbard doing what he's doing, why does he have to clarify everything? Because he knows he has to be very specific, very manipulative, and that's why I've said everything I've just said, not to tell you guys to be against science. I love science, not to even say that everything he's going to say is going to be incorrect, because there's a lot of correct things, but it's the manipulation of this idea of these smart people making you feel like, oh, because you're not as smart because of whatever, that you are not as. And that's why, to me, even if people think I'm intelligent, I honestly don't see myself as any better than anybody else, because it just so happens that in the version of this world that God put me into, that I'm in this position. And honestly, if you guys had a lot of the things explained to you the way that a lot of these things I've not even been explained to me, because it's not been explained to me, but I've experienced it from the way that I am as a person, it'll be the same. I'm not more like some kind of higher being or something. I'm not kind of saying, you know what I'm saying? And just the circumstances of my life also, and these are the things. And so, when I look at this, no, am I surprised that more than half the book is L. Ron Hubbard explaining what the hell he just said? No. Because guess what, guys? And let me tell you something. If 1 + 1 = 2, do you guys need a whole glossary to explain to you why 1 + 1 = 2? Or does 1 + 1 just equal 2? That's what I want to ask you guys. If 1 + 1 = 2, do you actually need somebody to explain why that is, with more than the thoughts you put into why 1 + 1 = 2? The only reason why somebody must be putting so much energy into explaining to you why 1 + 1 = 2 is because they're trying to convince you that 1 + 1 = 3. That's all I gotta say. If life's a game, let's play to win. I'll see you guys next time in chapter 1. God bless every single one of you. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next one.